Dan. So
My
appreciate.
pleasure.
Hello, and welcome back to the Talk of Success. My name and your host is Jacqueline Mejias-Fuertes, and Talk of Success is a podcast brought to you by the New Jersey Small Business Development Center, which is also known as Monmouth and Ocean Small Business Development Center. So, MOSBDC, if you're following us on any form of social media. So, the Talk of Success is a podcast that is to inspire, motivate, empower, and educate entrepreneurs as well as small business owners. One of the things that we have realized through our podcast is that success is an individual thing. You know, what I may deem a successful entrepreneur and what you may think a successful entrepreneur is totally different. The guests that we have on our show have reached a level of success, and they're here to share their joys of reaching that success as well as their pitfalls, what challenges they encountered on their pathway to success. But always remember, success for you and I are two different things. So today we have a client. And I say a client, and I'm allowed to say that because he has given me permission. But Dan, when I met Dan, he came to the SBDC for assistance. And like I always say on the Talk of Success, I've had the privilege and I'm grateful for all those individuals that I meet that have achieved the level of success that allow me to participate in their path or journey to success. Here at our SBDC, we've been around for over 45 years, so there's a lot of businesses out there that we've helped assist, but it's really touching to me and to see, not and but to see how wonderful some of our clients have actually done. And I don't take credit for it. It's always a team effort through the NJSBDC. This is how we're able to help our clients. But again, when I hear or I see, because I do follow our clients, have reached a level where I'm like, wow, you've done what? And it's really them, being empowered and taking their business to the next level. So today, our guest is Daniel Dunphy. Call him Dan if you want. And Dan started his entrepreneurial journey at a young age. He built a few childhood businesses, which is pretty awesome because as a professor, I'm always asking my students, are you an entrepreneur? What makes you think you're an entrepreneur? And, I'm always like, did you do something to make money while growing up? Guess what? That means you probably had the bug from way back then. So he found ways to be self sufficient, which that's part of creating a successful business. Looking for what ways can your business be self sufficient. It's critical in that path to growth. So in his 90s, he ran a repair shop with his father, which taught him lessons in business, retail, as well as what it takes when you're working with a family. Because I have to say, working with a family is never an easy task. So kudos to those that are able to work with their family and on top of that, reach a level of success. So, with that, I want to introduce you to our guest today, which I'm very grateful for him to take time out and have a conversation with us on Talk of Success. And that's Daniel Dunphy. Daniel, thank you and welcome to the
Hi,
Talk of
Jack.
Success podcast.
Pleasure
So,
to be here.
tell us a little bit more about yourself and your history and your business and everything you've been doing for Daniel. I met back in 2012. So it's a decade when you think
Yeah,
about
I
it.
mean,
It's been a decade. So tell us a little bit more about your business, which is Oceanic Repairs. And go.
so
So
Oceanic
Oceanic
Repair
Repair
is
is
a
a
factory
factory
service
service
appliance
appliance
repair
repair
for
for
the
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 main
main
company
company
we
we
help
help
is
is
Middleby,
Middleby,
which
which
is the
is the
mother
mother
company that
company that
owns
owns
Viking,
Viking,
Lynx,
Lynx,
Marvell,
Marvell,
Lock-On-Mu,
Lacanmu,
and a
and
few
a
other
few other
brands.
brands.
So it's
So it's
the
the
mother
mother
company
company
of a
of a
lot of
lot of
high-end
high-end
manufacturing
manufacturing
brands.
brands.
So
So
we
we
handle
handle
all of New
all of New
Jersey,
Jersey,
half of
half of
PA,
PA,
Very cool.
and
and
we
we
are
are
trying to do
trying
the
to do the
best
best.
to not buy too much uh, off of what we're doing, so we can take things in a bite-sized chunk, so that way we can uh, do things properly. At least what we call the Oceanic way. So
Okay, I love that growth. Yeah, I mean, obviously, when I spoke to Dan, every so often Dan will reach out to us, so we get in contact with each other. But his growth, and you just said something which is key: the oceanic way, growing at your own pace. I'm sure has led to your success. So I know I mentioned that you've always had this entrepreneurial bug, so to speak. But what was it that led you to go into business for yourself?
so in the 90s, being in a family business.
Mhm.
So at that point in time, my dad being my dad and me and him being together, there was still a hierarchy. He was still in control. We didn't agree,
Uh-huh.
and it dissolved naturally, which was fine. And then I just sort of went into the professional world, and effectively saw my value now in reflection from the companies I went to go work for.
Mhm.
Um, so quickly, from that point in time, became one of the top technicians, one of the top trainers. And at some point in time, you sort of come to realize that the road that you're on is short. And I wasn't making the money that I wanted to make.
Okay.
And even though everybody, just say, "Oh, you're great, you're this or that," I wasn't making the money that I wanted to make. So eventually, after going through a few manufacturers, I said, "Well, besides the fact that I have to do it in a way that I don't really prefer working for somebody else. I go into business for myself, which I had already done effectively with my father, so I wasn't afraid of it. And I could do it my way, take care of the customers my way. And then if I was correct in my thinking, I would be a better success than I would be working for the manufacturers as I was.
I, I love that. I never quite heard that from you before. That's pretty interesting, knowing that you worked for someone else, realized your talents and your skill set, and that you were never going to receive the compensation that you deserve
Correct.
based on your skill set. So knowing that you had to step out of that world and create your own world, which is basically what you did with Oceanic Repairs. And I love the fact that you indicated you weren't afraid to do it. So coming from a family owned business, I'm sure you just probably said, hey, you got this, right?
I thought it would be easier.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
A little harder than what you think. Is that it there?
Well, so on some level, it definitely was easier. Um, but the difference is it's all on you. So if you are a strong-willed, I consider myself confident. So I am willing to work hard, and I will be the first into a fray. I look out for my people that same way. And one of the beautiful compliments I've received multiple times was that I am the best boss they've ever had. And I like to think that I try to consistently put myself in their shoes. And a lot of times I solve problems that either is starting to affect them or before they even get to them, because I'm already aware. I was like, well, this might be an issue in the future. Let's take care of it now. And so instead of allowing it to fall on them, I'm preemptively working on things.
You know, with everything that's going on right now, you just said a few things that kind of resonated, that could spark this conversation even more. The fact that You are so concerned about your employees. And I remember that being a point with you even way back when, when you started making sure that I remember, if memory serves me right, health insurance, the whole nine yards. That, I love the fact that not only have your employees said you've been the best boss that they've ever worked for, but the fact that you've gone out of your way to make sure that if there's a problem, you've you're trying to fix it. Because right now, when we look at what's going on in our environment right now within our economy with the workforce, people say that there's a shortage of workers.
Hmm.
And based on the studies that I've done and the articles I've read, it's about employees taking time to have a conversation with their employers, having taking time to have a conversation with their employees and figuring out, how is it that you keep those employees that are working for you and making it not just their worthwhile, but helping them to see the value in it. So the fact that you've grown so much, that you cover all of New Jersey and now part of Pennsylvania, that says a lot. That's a testament to the work environment that you're creating for your employees, and
You know,
that's
it's
crazy.
a difficult thing, so anytime we deal with the public,
Hmm.
and there's I try to explain to the people I train, a job like this, you're going to meet every walk of life.
Hmm.
And the key is to try to keep a human angle of things and allow yourself to be able to empathize and be able to think about things from a different point of view. So an analogy I give people in my training, I said, imagine if you were driving on the road and you had somebody that was tailgating you. They're honking their horn. It's a stressful situation and you don't know what's happening. You're getting angry and there's this scenario where that car nearly hits you, cuts you off, and they zoom ahead. Well, you take that same scenario. Now just imagine they have a little sick child in the back seat and they're trying to get to the hospital. So one moment you feel anger, you feel annoyed and all this. And then all of a sudden, when you realize that there was a causality or a thing causing it to happen, you emotionally take a different stance. Now, the thing that I teach is you can choose to take that second stance. Doesn't matter what the reality is. And if you do that, then your customer service skills will go up dramatically. And another point that you made before, which was about people having conversations with their employees. Conversations are great, but the employee has to feel like that conversation is going to go somewhere. And if that employee feels like it is just lip service and nothing really has any real value, they've already lost. So then it just becomes kind of something that a gimmick that doesn't really come to fruition.
That's a huge statement, and you are so correct on that, Dan, because it's communication, and communication has to flow both ways, and the action has to come from two parties. It's not just one person talking and the other one listening. There has to be an engagement. That is so profound, I have to tell you. uh, because we all know when we have individuals working for us, whether they're subordinates, employees, how important it is to listen to your employee, because it is going to lead to the success of your business. Again, you know, I am in awe of just the fact, not just of your growth, because you are an exceptional, obviously teacher, but you are exceptional as a technician, and I could attest to that because of the service you've given me in my home. I
Mhm.
remember,
I
yes,
do too.
and the washing machine is still working, so is the
There you
dryer.
go.
Thank you for pointing me in the right direction for the washing machine and fixing the dryer. So I do appreciate that. Uh, but now going back into, yes, you started your business for yourself. You did this because, basically the way the path life takes us in making certain decisions. But along with that, there's some sacrifices that we all have to make when we're starting our business. What sacrifices do you feel you had to make to get you where you are today? And how does that make you feel? So it's
So
basic.
the one has to recognize that if you're going to go down the road of starting your own business, and if you are of the mindset that you care about how that business looks and feels, it will require 100% of you. And if you're not willing to give that 100%, you may not want to start it. I think that, it's there's a lot of, podcasts, internet, and everything else that make it seem like starting your own business, side hustles and stuff. They make it seem very simple, and if you're doing it for the money, there's probably better ways to make money. Um, and that's because if you're doing it with the mindset of taking care of your people and taking care of your business, the money that one minded person would put in their pocket, the other minded person reinvests both into their people and into the business. I am not really financially any better off, than I was 10 years ago. But the business itself has grown, and there's value in that. It just doesn't translate into, dollar value, unless you're looking for a point in time where, effectively what I consider to be a tipping point,
Mm-hmm.
to where you've grown to a point where you're no longer, it becomes its own entity. It's no longer you as being the engine. The business itself becomes its own engine. And in my mind frame, I think that it's at that point in time that you are reimbursed for everything you put into it in the beginning.
I like that. The tipping point where the business becomes its own entity. And that is when you feel that I guess for some people, that may be when they feel that they've reached that level of success. But I
Yeah, I think it could be, there's any number of triggers that would give them that feeling. Maybe it's they buy their first house. Maybe it's they go on vacation once a year, and whatever means something to them. But there's usually something that kind of says, this was what I went started this for, and they can start to make and receive those benefits that they were looking for.
okay. So basically, my understanding regarding sacrifice is that it did take up a lot of your time,
Yes,
family wise and everything, that you had to channel it into your business in order for your business to continue its growth and for it to be a success. Now, with growth and success, I always feel that there's mistakes that we've made, but those mistakes actually turn out to be one of the best learning opportunities that are out there. For
correct.
you, what mistakes or mistake, it could be one or it could be several, have you encountered that have given you the most significant lessons to you and to your success?
So there's always, I wish I could point out a specific thing. I would say that the mistakes were always moments of either not thinking something through, um, you know, being in a business that you have invested so much into, you are emotionally linked with. And so there is definitely learning moments where the business and interactions within the business, you have to distinguish between being not a personal interaction, but a business interaction. So, you know, simply put, would be like, imagine a customer who's upset and you're interacting with them. They're upset because of their issue and it's a business issue.
Hmm.
They're not upset with me personally, but because I take, it's my baby, you have
Right,
a you
right.
do have a tendency to internalize those things, and um, that's probably still a lesson I'm still working on because it is still my baby, and I still am emotionally invested in that way. But my focus more now on making the systems and the processes working in the way that I deem how they should. I am looking out for our people and our customers. You know, when a customer says, I'm unhappy with this interaction with you, I get that information. You try to do everything, the best you can, but you might have a customer who tried to reach you. I make as many angles and opportunities to communicate with people, but you may have it. So, well, I called you twice. Well, it was on the weekend, but we weren't there. It's understood. But you try to do the best to hear those complaints, even if you don't agree with them, and then if you can do anything about them, you're starting to improve even that 1% that some other people may say that 1% is the non-solvable scenarios. Sometimes if you can even get a slight improvement in that area, it will have a wide uh, benefit to all the customers.
I love your analogy that goes along with what you were saying. Um, how being emotionally linked and making decisions based on emotion versus business, and how that is something hard to learn.
It
But
is.
I, as anything in life, I feel that once you're able to manage it, it will take you further, because owning a business, I know how that feels. My business, before I shut it down, I had it for 8 years. And during that time, I have to say that was my third child. You know,
Hmm.
I birthed it from idea, and saw it come to fruition. And to me, that was huge. It took a lot for me to decide. It took me 2 years to decide that I wanted to close it down, because it wasn't that easy for me to say, yeah, I'm done with this. I want to move on. It took a lot out of me. But like you, I learned to say, this is a business transaction dialogue versus this is a personal one. And just like you stated, um, you know, I there's a book I love called The Four Agreements. And
Hmm.
in that book, one of the things that it actually says is a book on wisdom, and by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Hmm.
And what it states is, don't take anything personally. And that's what I'm hearing you say, that first, you don't know what's going on in the other person's mind. It's more about them than it is about you. And even though this is your business and someone may appear to be attacking it, again, and all the analogies you've made so far, it's like you don't know what that person is thinking, but this is how you can deal with it. And when it comes to business, you know, understanding the difference between business and personal. And even
Yep.
if they are attacking your business, it's not personal to you. It's just something that they happen to be going through. So, loving your examples. And going on to other examples, there's always three action items that I love our audience to take away.
Hmm.
And I am going to ask you, what are those three action items that you would recommend, and why? What are the things, as someone who you've been in business for quite some time now, over a decade, which is pretty amazing. You've crossed that threshold where they said that most businesses tend to fail if they don't go beyond a certain time. You've definitely passed that threshold. You've created a sustainable business, which is amazing. So, what are the three things that you would recommend to someone who's listening to the podcast, who's looking for inspiration or motivation, in terms of, making sure that they continue on their journey, or what has worked for you, or maybe what shouldn't they do? So, what are those three action items?
So there is one, yeah, that definitely is the first step. So when you start off with a business, obviously there's something. So let's just say you are a person who's passionate about a thing, and
Mhm.
this thing will be what your business is about. If you start that business strictly on that passion, you have a uncontrolled fire. Now, the problem with the uncontrolled fire is they can spread in a negative way. So I wish I guess had somebody frame it in a way for me when I was younger, and how I'm going to frame it for you now.
Mhm.
So if you start off with the passion, and then you take that passion and you direct it, you give it a focus. Now you can take a flame, turn it to a laser. Now, when you take that laser, you can then pinpoint an actionable plan, and then that fire and that passion will be what will sustain you through enacting your plan. What I did when I was younger was I have a fairly sizable forehead, which what I mean by that is I'm stubborn.
Okay.
So
I was like,
I
really? Okay.
I will have a
Yes.
tendency to go into something as if, if I hit it hard enough, I will succeed. I will get through it. There's definitely times when that process was not the best way to go about things. So if somebody has that passion, they should reach out to somebody like you and then the services that are around them to try to find a way to understand the passion gives you the energy to do what you need to do, but you do want to have a business structure understood up front. So that way you can take and effectively work incrementally. So that way, when you're at the point where I am now, instead of having done so much on your own and then having to realize, well, I need help. I have this, everybody wants me to be in their house, but I'm only one person.
Mhm.
So then at some point now you have to bring on people and now you have to pay attention to the business side of things. If you formulate that up front and you already have the passion, you can do both at the same time. And then when you get to that point 10 years down the road, you'll have a much healthier, focused business to show for it.
I like that. Like the healthy business focus by doing that. That's ideal. All right, give us another one.
Well, the other one is going to people like you.
Mhm.
So you have these wonderful resources, and there's people all over the place who are there for various reasons that can take a problem that may seem insurmountable to you, but from their perspective and from their knowledge point, might be a very simple thing. And this is the interaction me and you had back in 2012. It was a scenario I didn't know how to answer
Mhm.
that our interaction and our working together solved for me. Um, to not forget that to don't assume you're alone, and to have your eyes open to the resources that are around you. So that's definitely number two.
Mhm.
And number three is to realize that you are going to be your worst boss that you've ever had. Um,
Wow.
you're going if you're really looking for the business, it's weekends. It's whenever you know they said, oh, I'm going to take this week off, and then something comes up. It'll be next week, or whatever the scenario. You're going to be tough on yourself. Now, hopefully, at some point in time, you realize that you are the one in control of that, and then you become the best boss for yourself. But in the beginning, you're going to be hard on yourself.
So I love that. The insight being that originally you will be hard on yourself, but even though you're being tough on yourself, it will work out for the best down the road.
And you have to at some point look at you look at yourself as a resource for your business. And if you don't take care of your resources, then you're going to lose them. So at some point in time, you have to have a little self care and go, you know what? Um, this is a necessary thing. So that way I can continue to do and be there for my people, my customers, and everyone above.
Wow. That's extremely insightful. I love that, bringing in self care because it's true. In different podcasts that we have had, it does come up. I think when I was in business for myself, no one ever spoke about self care. And I'm happy to see that throughout the years that has actually changed. That as business owners, we understand the importance of giving ourselves the opportunity or the time to power down just so we could come back and be able to take care of the entities that we're creating that we're so passionate about, because it does take a lot. So I'm happy that as a whole, we've understood it enough to know how critical it is for self care. So, to reiterate, the three action items that Dan is stating that you should take away from this podcast is, um, your passion, make sure that it's laser focused versus, you're passionate about something and it being uncontrollable. That if you learn how to focus, kind of harness that passion and point it to a plan, it's going to help you and your business succeed. Also, seeking assistance, looking at the resources that are available. Thank you for Dan for mentioning the SBDC, but we're not the only resource that's around with the SBDC. There's so many other resources that we partner with, because I would love to say we can help you from A to Z, but reality is that we can't. But that doesn't mean that we do not have friends and develop partnerships with different agencies and organizations throughout the state that can help you with the success of your business, and to always understand you're not doing this alone. As much as it may feel that way sometimes, always know that there's resources that are out there that can help you. And then understanding yourself as your boss. I just love the fact that you said, realize you're your worst boss, and or your toughest boss, because like you did, I think a lot of us fall in that category when we're like, I'm my toughest critic, I'm my hardest critic, I expect so much more from me than I expect from anyone else. And understanding how tough you are going to be for yourself, but knowing that once you're able to manage things the way they should be managed, and you see yourself as the resource that you are for your organization, your business will continue to grow. But the importance behind there is that self care piece. I think that is so critical for so many individuals who are in business to understand. When it comes to self care, there's no other. And it has, some people may think that, have referred to it as maybe that's being selfish. I do not believe that at all, because if we don't take time to power down, give ourselves the breaks that we need, it's going to impact the success of our business. So as we're coming to an end, we won't end our podcast until we have the Did You Know section. I do want to thank Dan for being with us and actually providing us with those incredible three action items that I really hope you remember and you take away with. But today, in regarding the Did You Know section, I do want to talk a little bit about our podcast, not ours, to talk of success, but actually the podcast and webcast called the Not So Small Business Podcast. And you could just go on to our state office's website, which is njsbdc.com, to hear quite a few of the podcast recordings and webcasts where they speak on how to run your business better, how to make it more productive, how to make it more efficient. The host is our state director, Kelly Brosnia, as well as her co-host, Brian Moran, which has been on our podcast as well. And their focus is really to make you aware of all the other resources that the NJSBDC is actually partnering with throughout the state, but what's available to you to help your business become the success that you want it to be. So, with that, that's all we have for today for our podcast. Once again, I am in gratitude and grateful for Dan for coming on from Oceanic Repairs and talking about his success and how he got there and those wonderful three takeaways that are critical, to the success of your business. So, with that, Dan, thank you for taking time out. I know you're on the road. So I'm happy you took a moment to stop and talk to us about your success. It was my pleasure seeing you again in person. We've spoken on the phone, but I haven't seen you in person in a while. So happy to see you again
And you
and
too.
continued success. I am so happy for the success, your success, Oceanic Repair success, and how you keep on growing by leaps and bounds and doing it at the Oceanic pace, which I think is amazing. That's words of wisdom right there. Do it at your own pace. Make sure you can walk before you can run. So with that, thank you all. And once again, just Jacqueline Mejias-Fuertes with the Talk of Success from the NJSBDC at Brookdale Community College, covering Monmouth and Ocean County, also known as Monmouth and Ocean Small Business Development Center. Make sure to follow us just using our handle MOSBDC or find us on the web at mosbdc.com. So with